Special Edition. These are the early moments of the 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. Now, coming into the picture is Ocean Outboard there. So the rundown is Running Wild, Ocean Outboard, Harazuba, and Special Edition. Here they're fighting for the lead here in the early moments of this race. Of course, now Special Edition and Ocean Outboard are tightly matched. They're both 28-foot skaters. Running Wild is a 35-foot motion. Running Wild is a 35-foot motion powered by two 500-horsepower J&B Chevy inboards with Merc Cruiser drives. Now we have Running Wild on the inside, followed by Ocean Outboard, Harazuba, and Special Edition. And now it seems that Special Edition is taking the lead, going out front. But right behind is Ocean Outboard and Harazuba in a battle there for second place. There's Running Wild. And there's Ocean Outboard on the outside. Running Wild is a 35-foot motion powered by two 500-horsepower J&B Chevy inboards with Merc Cruiser drives. The driver of Running Wild, Mr. John Keeley from Long Branch, New Jersey. At the throttle, Mike Ramp from Tampa, Florida. This is the second race of 1993 for Running Wild. It took first place in Sarasota earlier this year with an average speed of 88.41 miles per hour. There you see Special Edition there out in front. They see the dark rain cloud also to the side. Hopefully it'll just move out. And of course there's Running Wild here on the inside in second place right now in the early moments of this 1993 Run for the Gold. By the way, Running Wild is maintained by Ingle Marine and rigged at Lake X. Running Wild would also like to thank Jessel Valve Train, Lake X, Ingle Marine, Motion Powerboats, Ronstadt Paper, Keeley Racing Enterprises, and Uber Marine Transmissions. There is Special Edition on the outside there, currently in first place overall here. And of course there's Running Wild. And Ocean Outboard on the far outside. Running Wild would also like to thank some of their crew members, Crew Chief John Engel, rest of the crew, Steve Dolph of J&B Performance, Philip DeShepio, Bill and Chris Lamore, Jack and Carolyn Keeley, and Dan and Shirley Jessel. There's Running Wild on the inside, Ocean Outboard on the outside. And Special Edition, as we said earlier, is right now in first place as we head towards the 7-mile bridge. Just listen to those J&B Chevy inboards. There's Ocean Outboard on the outside. And now as we look at the old 7-mile bridge, it looks like Special Edition is going to be first under the bridge. And there we see Running Wild on the inside. It looks like Running Wild may be second under the bridge. Though here comes Ocean Outboard, which has now taken the lead over Running Wild. So Special Edition, Ocean Outboard, and Running Wild now going under the 7-mile bridge. The freeze frame video production crew would like to welcome Running Wild to the 1993 National Racing Circuit. They're really doing well in their first race earlier this year in Sarasota. They took first place with an average speed of 88.41 miles per hour. There's Ocean Outboard. Some of the other competitors in C class include Running Wild, of course, Ocean Outboard, and Change Order, Harazuba, Team Power Play, an old-time rock and roll. You're looking at Ocean Outboard. Ocean Outboard is throttled by J.B. Lehman. Just listen to those 2.5 EFIs. Ocean Outboard is a 28-foot skater. Once again, powered by two 2.5 EFIs. And as we said, J.B. Lehman is the throttle man. Driving is Pat Molo from Amity Harbor, New York. J.B. is from Boca Raton, Florida. Ocean Outboard took first place in its class and overall in St. Cloud, Florida, with an average speed of 76.54. Took third in Corpus Christi, sixth in Atlantic City, second in Sarasota, Florida, and currently is in first place in the 1993 National Point Standings in C class. You're looking at Ocean Outboard. The Ocean Outboard team would like to thank its sponsors, including Ocean Outboard from Merrick, New York, Dollar Marine, Graphics, EFX, Bobby Moore Rig Shop, and VP Racing Fuel. Just listen to that throttle man, J.B. Lehman. Ocean Outboard currently second in C class. Special Edition is number 1 in the lead. Those 2.5 EFIs. You're looking at the leader in national points in C class, Ocean Outboard. This 28 skater can really crank through these waters. For those 2.5 EFIs, Ocean Outboard. Their Special Edition on the outside in first place. Now you can see Ocean Outboard and Special Edition. They're battling for first place in C class. Their Special Edition on the outside. And Ocean Outboard. Not much room between the two boats. A big battle there going on between Ocean Outboard and Special Edition. Ocean Outboard there pulling out a little bit over Special Edition and has taken the lead in C class, and now is currently number 1 in C class. There's Spirit of Houston currently at second place in P class, trailing the leader, Steel Lightning. There's Steel Lightning. It's a 32-foot skater powered by 3 2.5 EFIs. The driver is Alan Steele from Jacksonville, Florida. At the throttle, Alan Wagner from Orlando, Florida. There's Steel Lightning currently number 1 in P class. Steel Lightning took 5th place at the East-West Powerboat Shootout earlier this year and 2nd in Atlantic City. Currently, it is 3rd in the national point standings in P class, but right now it is number 1 in P class in this race. There you see Spirit of Houston on the outside. Great competition here in P class. The Steel Lightning Racing Team would like to thank some of its sponsors, including Interstate Batteries, Mercury High Performance, and NGK Spark Plugs. There's Spirit of Houston now. Great competition in P class. Spirit of Houston and Steel Lightning battling it out here for first place. Now, we want to tell you that freeze frame video has been here numerous times, and we've never seen what happened earlier in the race. It was something very historic we want to share with you. Earlier in the race, apparently some boats had some navigational problems, and Steel Lightning became the first pro stock boat in history to go under the world-famous 7-mile bridge in first place on the first lap of this race, ahead of all the superboats, the open, and the modified boats. So that's a pretty historic thing that happened earlier in this race. Steel Lightning right now you're looking at. There you see Steel Lightning going under the bridge and beginning its turn. There you see Steel Lightning and the many spectator boats there in the background. And Spirit of Houston out front there in the lead, number 1 in P class, with Steel Lightning currently running number 2. There's Steel Lightning currently number 2 in P class. You know, Al Steele and the Steel Lightning race team set their first pro stock speed record in last year's Cape Coral World Championship with a 7-lap 99.1 mile average speed of 100.79 miles per hour. It is the only time in history that a pro stock boat averaged more than 100 miles per hour in a complete race, and more than 100 miles per hour in every lap of a race. Steel Lightning won the race by more than 3 miles per hour and captured the 1992 APBA Pro Stock World Championship title. You're looking at the Steel Lightning Racing Team, currently number 2 in P class. Currently in third place in P class is Slick 50. Slick 50 is a 37-foot Talon powered by three 2.5 EFI Mariner outboards. Slick 50 driver is Chip Fent from Sarasota, Florida. At the throttle, Charlie Haynes, also from Florida. He's from Fort Lauderdale. Slick 50 took first place in Corpus Christi earlier this year, sixth in Atlantic City, and currently is in fourth place in the national point standings. Now, if Slick 50 comes in first, second, or third today, it could move up and could move up ahead of Steel Lightning. The Slick 50 crew would like to thank some of its sponsors, including Talon Marine, Sportif USA, Sierra, NGK Spark Plugs, and Mariner Outboard Engines. You're looking at Slick 50, currently number 3 in P class. And there's some of Marathon, Florida there in the background. You're watching the 1993 Run for the Gold, coming to you from Marathon, Florida. P50, Slick 50, currently in third in P class. Some of the other competition, of course, in P class, very competitive. We've got Steel Lightning, Patriot, Spirit of Houston, and Geodynamic Industries. There's Slick 50 and many of the spectator boats there in the background. A great vantage point to watch this race. And even though the weather is pretty good today, we see some of those dark clouds in the background, but long as they stay in the background, we'll be okay. Slick 50, currently number 4 in the national point standings in P class. And right now running number 3 in this Run for the Gold. In the modified class, there you see Phantom Offshore on the right side, taking out Airborne. Phantom Offshore right now currently running in third place in M class, with Agitator and Flying Tiger battling out for first place in M class. There's Phantom Offshore. Phantom Offshore, a 35-foot Phantom powered by two 750 horsepower Boyd inboards with Merc Cruiser drives. Bill Hill from Orlando, Florida, is the driver of Phantom Offshore. At the throttle, Paul Changler from Orlando. Phantom Offshore currently running in third place in M class. It also took third at the East-West Powerboat Shootout earlier this year, fifth at Fort Apache Hooligans, and third in Atlantic City. Currently fourth right now in the 1993 national point standings. You're looking at Phantom Offshore, currently in third place in the modified. The Phantom Offshore racing team would like to thank Dennis Boyd for a great performance and reliability for those Boyd inboards, and also Andy Williams for helping out in Oswego, and also, of course, down here in Marathon, and Will Smith for building a great hull. You're looking at Phantom Offshore, currently in third place in the modified. There are those Merc Cruiser drives, and of course the crew. Bill Hill driving, at the throttle Paul Changler, both from Orlando, Florida. Crew looks comfortable there in their racing bolsters. There's Phantom Offshore crew members. Phantom Offshore, good attitude and right on course. And just look at those rain clouds in the background. Just stay away. And at this point, they are, and it's a great race here at the 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. Phantom Offshore once again is number 3 in the modified. Once again, there is the famous 7 Mile Bridge. In A class, there's No Fear. No Fear there making its turn. No Fear is a 29-foot Phantom powered by one 650 horsepower CNG inboard with Merc Cruiser drive. The driver of No Fear is Scott Matter from Miami, Florida. At the throttle, Robert Corum from Longwood, Florida. You're looking at No Fear right now in A-Class. Highly competitive A-Class. Some other competitors include Frank's Marine, Velocity, Fountain, Scott Free Racing, Just Lucky Racing, Independence, and No Problem. And right now, you're looking at No Fear. No Fear is rigged and maintained by Scott, who is the owner and operator of Intense Marine. Some of the boats that run out of Intense Marine include Tequila, which led in the Sarasota race in P-Class earlier this year. Also In It to Win, High Intensity, Off Limits, Eliminator, Bad Intentions, and Intense. Robert Corum and Scott Mander are previous Gold Cup champions. And with that shot, you feel you're right in the boat, don't you? Pretty close. We'd like to thank, by the way, our helicopter pilot David Clark and also Nancy and Gary Johnson, who are taking care of the video and stills for this race. And of course, Mr. Tom Russell, who is the spotter, getting some great shots here with No Fear. We look forward to seeing Scott Mander of Intense Marine at some of these other races, where he will bring along all these other boats that he rigs and maintains. Boats like Tequila, boats like In It to Win, High Intensity, Off Limits, Eliminator, Bad Intentions, and Intense. And we think that's a tremendous accomplishment. And we wish Scott Mander the very best of luck for the remainder of this 1993 racing season. Intense Marine for all your rigging and high performance needs. You're looking at No Fear in A-Class. Some of the other competition in the other classes include NXS and Apache Kit and Super. In the Open, of course, there's Recovery, and the Modified Agitator and Flying Tiger are fighting it out for first place. And in Offshore Sea, we got Running Wild and Ocean Outboard. Right now, you're looking at No Fear. A great overhead shot there of Scott Mander and Robert Corum. And of course, there's the Mercruiser Drive. Great overhead shot, and thanks to Nancy and Gary Johnson and our helicopter pilot David Clark. You feel there you're almost right in the seat driving yourself. Terrific shot. No Fear. Makes you we just want to hop aboard and go for a ride. Also in A-Class is Just Lucky Racing with No Fear on the outside. Just Lucky Racing is a 23-foot Python powered by one 500-horsepower Chevy inboard. Driver is Don Bedusi from Fort Myers, Florida. At the throttle, Bob Fleckenstein, also from Fort Myers, and navigating Kevin Johnson. The whole crew is from Fort Myers, Florida. You're looking at Just Lucky Racing. And there you see No Fear on the outside. And there's Just Lucky Racing now passing No Fear. Just Lucky Racing took fourth place in Sarasota earlier this year. The Just Lucky Racing team would like to thank some of its sponsors, including First Choice Haircutters, Gardetto's, and Stecco's Automotive. You're looking at Just Lucky Racing in A-Class. Special thanks go to Dave Moore, Mark Saunders, and the Bear from the Just Lucky Racing team. There you see many of the spectator boats watching this 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. Some of the other competitors in A-Class include Frank's Marine, Velocity, Fountain, Scott Free Racing, Independence, and No Problem. And there's the Just Lucky Racing team. Great shot. By the way, in A-Class, Frank's Marine is the national point standing leader in A-Class. You're looking at Just Lucky Racing. That's an all Fort Myers, Florida racing team there. Don Viducci, Bob Fleckenstein, and Kevin Johnson navigating. Doing a fine job. Boat seems to have a good attitude, making its way quite well there in these waters. Just Lucky Racing Team in A class. Cranking right along there, and in second place in M class is Flying Tiger. Flying Tiger is a 30-foot Chris craft powered by two 500-horsepower Tiger marine inboards with Mert Cruiser drives. Aboard Flying Tiger, the husband and wife team driver Sunny Hawkins and throttle woman Tina Blizniak, both from Elma, New York. Flying Tiger took second place earlier this year at the East-West Powerboat Shootout, fifth in Atlantic City, and second in Sarasota with an average speed of 83.88 miles per hour. Currently, they are in first place in the national point standings in M class. You're looking at Flying Tiger. By the way, Sonny and Tina became the first race team in history to hold two offshore kilo records at the same time. History was made earlier this year when they broke their modified class record of the American Powerboat Association's offshore category with a two-pass average speed of 117.560 miles per hour. They also hold a kilo run record for D class. You're looking at Flying Tiger. Some of Flying Tiger's sponsors include Uber Marine, Oliver Billet Rods, VDO Instruments, VP Racing Fuels, Torque Engineering, J&L Performance, and NewTek Dyno Engineering, and Mobil One Racing Oil. You know, the husband and wife duo of Tina and Sunny Hawkins continued at a new level of excitement, really, to offshore racing. This Tina is the only throttle woman competing in professional offshore powerboat racing, and in a sport dominated by men. This 8-year veteran stands out as a shining example to other women of what can be accomplished with determination and hard work. You're looking at the Flying Tiger racing team. By the way, Sonny, he's an engineer and owns, of course, his own engineering firm. He's applied his exacting skills as an engineer to the design and supervision of his state-of-the-art racing engines. Earlier designs of these engines earned the Hawkins and Flying Tiger a national and world championship in 1991 and 1992. Sonny also unselfishly contributes to the improvement of the sport as an elected offshore racing commissioner and as a member of the race organization's technical committee. You're looking at the Flying Tiger racing team, currently number 2 in M class. This is the 1993 Run for the Gold from Marathon, Florida. Those Tiger Marine inboards sound excellent. Now we see Flying Tiger going under the 7-mile bridge. There we go. Flying Tiger in second place in M class. Now as we look up the field, there's Agitator. Agitator's in first place with Flying Tiger in second, trying to catch Agitator and pick up some distance there. Flying Tiger in second, trying to catch Agitator, who is in first place. There's Flying Tiger. Also cranking around the course is Agitator right now in first place in M class. Agitator is a 32-foot skater powered by two 650-horsepower United Racing inboards with Mert Cruiser drives. The driver of Agitator is Alan Duntman from Oak Brook, Illinois. At the throttle, Kirk Duntman. Agitator, by the way, took first place at the Texas East-West Powerboat Shootout with an average speed of 79.24 miles per hour. Second in Atlantic City, and took first place in Sarasota with an average speed of 92.56 miles per hour. Agitator is currently in second place on the national point standings for M class, but right now it is leading. It is number one right now in M class in this race. In the national point standings, Agitator, as we said, is second, and Flying Tiger is in first place in the national point standings, and only 42 points separate these two boats. So there's a battle going on there in the national point standings as well as in this race right now, with Agitator in the lead in first place with Flying Tiger in second place in M class. And there's the crew there of Agitator in these rough waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Doing a fine job handling Agitator. The boat is right on course. Some of the other competitors in the highly contested modified class include Airborne and Phantom Offshore. Just listen to those United Racing inboards. The Agitator race team were the world champions of 1992 and the U.S. national champions as well. They also won the Run for the Gold series last year. You're looking at the Agitator race team, currently in first place in M class. Just listen to Kirk Dumpman at the throttle. Both crew members there doing a fine job with Agitator, number one in M class. In S class is High Intensity. High Intensity is a 25-foot Cougar powered by two 200-horsepower Mercury outboards. The driver, Eddie Santos from Miami, Florida. At the throttle, Alex Ramos from Hialeah Gardens, Florida. High Intensity took third place in the Seaboat competition in Fort Apache earlier this year. Some of the other competition in the stock outboard with High Intensity: Mobile One, Team Florida, Quality Machine Products, Thin Ice, Conch Attack, Chiller, Courageous Cat, and Tiger Cat. Those are some of the other competitors in the stock outboard, the S class. High Intensity is rigged and maintained by Scott from Intense Marine. There's the High Intensity crew, Eddie Santos and Alex Ramos, both Floridians. High Intensity right on course, and the High Intensity crew doing an excellent job. S76 High Intensity. Those Mercury outboards are doing their job. Once again, we like to say that this race course is a 20-mile course, and it's basically split in half of it in the Gulf of Mexico and the other half in the rougher waters of the Atlantic Ocean, which makes it more highly competitive for the catamaran and the V-hull style boats. A lot of good racing going on here. This 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. There are the spectator boats in the background watching this great competition. Beautiful day. Those storm clouds seem to have passed us by. This is the 5th national race for the APBA. Once again, this race is sponsored, organized by the Key West Powerboat Racing Association. There's the 7-mile bridge where many people are using that as their vantage point to watch this race. And a great vantage point it is. There's B-26 Tsunami, a 34-foot Sutphin. Now coming into the picture, C930 Power Play Racing in C class. Power Play is a 33-foot power play powered by 3 2.5 EFIs. The driver is John Lombardi from Deerfield, Florida. At the throttle, Ed Thornton from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Power Play Racing took 2nd place earlier this year in Atlantic City and currently holds 5th place in the 1993 national point standings in C class. Some of the sponsors include Edit Marine, Porsche Tech, intercoms by East Coast Avionics, and thanks to all the crew members at Edit Marine, Lee Baker, Rich Wheeler, and Jim Georges. Once again, Power Play Racing is rigged and maintained by Edit Marine, who is a dealer for Mercury Performance products. Power Play Racing in C class. Some of the other competition in C class include Running Wild, Ocean Outboard, Change Order, Old Time Rock and Roll, and Eliminator. You're watching Power Play Racing in C class. Just listen to the throttles manned by Ed Thornton. Doing a fine job. There's Ed Thornton and John Lombardi. Those 3 2.5 EFIs are mounted on a Porter brace hydraulic transom bracket. There's Power Play Racing and Tsunami there on the outside. Of course, they're in different classes. Power Play Racing in C class, Tsunami in B class. Now you see there Power Play Racing picking up some distance on Tsunami and looking to make a move. Of course, they're in different classes. Tsunami in B class, Power Play Racing in C class. And it looks like now they're maneuvering. They're both pretty equal. Power Play Racing and Tsunami head and head. You're watching the 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. And there we see Power Play Racing edging out over at Tsunami in B class. Power Play Racing, of course, in C class, currently in 5th place in the national point standings in C class. Power Play Racing. There are those 3 2.5 EFIs doing a fine job. All right, in B class, it's B-26 Tsunami. Tsunami's a 34-foot Sutphin powered by 2 550-horsepower Chevy inboards with Merc Cruiser drives. Driving Tsunami, Bob Bradley from Burlington, Ontario, Canada. At the throttle, Dennis Bradley, also from Burlington. Navigating, Joel Walthier from Fort Myers, Florida. You're looking at B-26 Tsunami. Tsunami took 4th place earlier this year in Atlantic City. Some of the other competition in the highly competitive B class, CF Express. Imagine that. Pittman Photo Express, Rock Solid, Undertaker, and of course, Power Play. In S class is Team Florida. Team Florida is a 24-foot skater with a white hull and deck powered by two 200 horsepower Mercury outboards. The driver of Team Florida is Ted Kynes from Key West, Florida. The owner and throttle man of the Team Florida is Edward Spaeth from Lakeland, Florida. Edward performs all mechanical work and sets up Team Florida from his Lakeland-based Team Florida Marine Inc. Team Florida placed fourth at the Atlantic City Grand Prix and took fourth in Sarasota early this year. Also took third at Fort Apache Hooligans in Miami, Florida, and placed first at the Florida State Championship in St. Cloud. Team Florida's sponsorship is Harmsco Filters, located in Palm Beach, Florida. Harmsco is a Florida corporation manufacturing liquid filtration equipment to help the environment. Harmsco's logo for 5 years has been "Only the Strong Survive," as seen on the side of Team Florida. Harmsco's character, Trophy, typifies stainless steel's durability and its ability to withstand extremes of temperature, pressure, and the economic concerns of affordable environmental compliance. "Only the Strong Survive" has been adopted as Team Florida's slogan and typifies these race participants' desire to break the record book or break the boat that they push to the limit. Team Florida's crew include Captain Randy Stake, Gary Prickett, and Tony Griffith, who play a big part in making this race boat so competitive. Team Florida would also like to thank all of its Florida resident members for their support and enthusiasm. Team Florida currently number 2 in S-Class. The Team Florida racing team doing an excellent job. Some of the other competition in S-Class include Mobil 1, which is right now the leader in S-Class. And then, of course, there's Team Florida, Quality Machine Products, Thin Ice, and Conc-Attack. Those are some of the competitors in stock outboard. And, of course, you're looking at Team Florida, currently number 2 in S-Class. Once again, there are some of the spectator boats in the background. This is the 5th national race for the APBA, and a good one it is. Now we see the leader in S-Class, Mobil 1, as it goes under the 7-mile bridge. There's Mobil 1, currently number 1 in S-Class. Mobil 1 is a 24-foot skater. There you see the spectator boats getting a great view of this race. All right, Mobil 1's a 24-foot skater powered by two 200 horsepowered Mercury outboards. The driver, Jim Bisline from Deerfield, Florida. At the throttle, Bob Loeffler from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Mobil 1 took third at the Florida State Boat Championships in St. Cloud earlier this year. Took first at Fort Apache with an average speed of 72.52 miles per hour. Fifth in Corpus Christi. First in Atlantic City and first in Sarasota. So it's had a pretty good year so far. Mobil 1 currently second in the 1993 national point standings for S-Class. You're looking at Mobil 1. The Mobil 1 racing team would like to thank some of its sponsors, including Timothy Wall, Nationwide Insurance, Equipment Sales Company, Shucker's Bar and Grill, Days Inn and Marathon, and Graphics Effects. And, of course, Mobil 1. There's the crew looking pretty comfortable there in their racing bolsters. They are currently number 1. They should be comfortable. Number 1 in S-Class. There's Power Play Racing on the inside. Of course, they're in C-Class, being passed by Mobil 1. Mobil 1, as we said, is second in the national point standings, but only by really 5 points. Actually, 6 points. Thin Ice is first with 371 points. Mobil 1 with 365. So a battle going on here for the national point standings between Mobil 1 and Thin Ice. And, of course, if Mobil 1 wins this race in their category, it looks like it would overtake Thin Ice at this point. Mobil 1 trying to move into first place into national point standings. Doing a fine job there, the crew of Mobil 1. The Mobil 1 racing team right on course. Boat has a good attitude. Those Mercury outboards sound excellent. Jim Bisline and Bob Loeffler of Mobil 1. Number 1 in S-Class. Currently in 4th place in C-Class is Change Order. Change Order is a 28-foot red line powered by two 400-horsepower United Racing engines with Mercury drives. Aboard Change Order, driver John Peterson from Key West. At the throttle, Mike Horn, also from Key West. Both John and Mike had a lot to do with organizing and helping out here at this particular race in Marathon, Florida. Both being neighbors, so to speak. Change Order took 4th place earlier this year in Hooligans and is also right now in 4th place in the national point standings in C-Class. The Change Order racing team would like to give some special thanks to Mr. Ed Whirling and the crew and Bob Marinick and Maris Equipment. You're looking at Change Order currently in 4th place in C-Class. There you see some of those ominous clouds in the background, but at this point that's basically where they've stayed, and it's been an extremely good race weather-wise at this point. Nice weather here in Marathon, Florida. Some of the other competition in C-Class include Running Wild, Ocean Outboard, Team Power Play, Old Time Rock and Roll, Eliminator, Ramada Inn. Here's Change Order. Just listen to those United Racing engines. There you see the crew members in their racing canopies. Really a beautiful looking boat. Change Order right on course. We wish the Change Order racing team the very best of luck for the remainder of this race and the 1993 racing season. In S-Class is Tiger Cat. Tiger Cat's a 25-foot Talon powered by two 200-horsepowered Evinrude outboards. Aboard Tiger Cat, the driver Steve Durazensky from Naples, Florida. At the throttle, Tim Steiner, also from Naples. Tim and Steve would like to thank Mock Propellers, Creek Marine, Rappers Surfwear, Flagship Marine, and Brookside Marine Center. And a special thanks to Duke Waldrop and everyone else at OMC Performance Group. Barry Karras with OMC, Lynn with West Coast Propeller, and Tom Rohr at Rohr's Machine Shop. You're looking at Tiger Cat in S-Class. Steve and Tim doing a fine job there in Tiger Cat. Those Evinrude outboards sound excellent. Tim doing a fine job there at the throttle. Steve right on course. Some of the other competition in the stock outboard class include Mobile One, which is now in the lead, Team Florida, which is currently in second place, and then Quality Machine Products and Thin Ice. And we've got Chiller, Courageous Cat, High Intensity, and of course Tiger Cat, which you are looking at right now with Steve Dorozensky and Tim Steiner inside. As they pass no problem, we like to wish Steve and Tim the very best of luck for the remainder of the 1993 racing season. In B class, there's power play. A lot of competition in B class. Along with power play, some of the other boats include CF Express. Imagine that. Pittman Photo Express, Rock Solid, and Undertaker. Power play B61. This boat is a 33-foot power play powered by two 600 horsepower power play inboards with Merc Cruiser drives. Power Play is owned by Power Play Marine of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, driven by Mr. Richard Pingree of Beaufort, South Carolina. On the throttle is past U.S. champion and Hall of Champion inductee Dan Weinstein, also the owner of Power Play Marine. The factory team consists of co-driver and sponsor Richard Pingree, owner of Ping's Sports Bar in Beaufort, South Carolina. Co-driver and sponsor Gary Coberly, owner of Power Play Racing Engines of Fort Worth, Texas. And throttleman Dan Weinstein, owner of Power Play Marine Inc. of Fort Lauderdale. And crew chief and chief engineer Mike Kossel of Pompano Beach, Florida. Halfway through their first full season, Power Play race team is currently on top in the APBA National High Point Standings, Southeastern Divisionals, and Gold Cup Series. Power Play took first place in Hooligans earlier this year, second at the East-West Powerboat Shootout in Texas, and second in Sarasota. You're looking at Power Play, currently number 2 in B class. Richard Pingree, driver, and throttleman Dan Weinstein doing a fine job on Power Play. Once again, currently in second place in B class. Just listen to the throttles. As we see Power Play passing the S-boat Tiger Cat, we can say that Power Play looks like is doing an excellent job there in these water conditions. Power Play currently in second place in B class. B61. Just listen to those Power Play inboards. Dan Weinstein and Richard Pingree doing a fine job on Power Play. In the middle of the pack is the Chiller race team in S class. Their Chiller getting a little loose, but no problem. Chiller's a 26-foot red line powered by two 200 horsepower Yamaha engines. The driver is Steve Page from Cape Coral, Florida. At the throttle, Craig Disney from Fort Myers, Florida. Chiller took 4th place in Corpus Christi earlier this year, and 5th in Atlantic City, 2nd in Sarasota, and 3rd in Lake Peoria, Illinois. Currently, Chiller is 3rd in the national point standings in S class. You're looking at the Chiller racing team, currently in the middle of the pack in S class. Just listen to those Yamaha engines. The Chiller race team would also, they would like to thank Hydrotech for the engines and Yamaha as well. Just listen to those engines. Crew doing a fine job there. Steve Page and Craig Disney at the throttle. Keeping a good attitude on Chiller in this 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. Been a great day and a great day of racing. And there we have a good shot of the crew members, Steve and Craig, aboard Chiller. There are those two 200 horsepower Yamahas. Craig Disney doing a fine job on the throttle. We'd like to wish the Chiller racing team the very best of luck for the 1993 season. The Chiller race team. Currently in third place in B class. Imagine that. Imagine that as a 29-foot Mirage powered by two 550 horsepower Bandit inboards with Mercury outdrives. The driver of Imagine That, Dan Dominski from St. Petersburg, Florida. At the throttle, Scott Langbine from Brink, New Jersey. Navigating is Pete Mutton from St. Petersburg, Florida as well. You're looking at Imagine That currently in third place in B class. Imagine That, by the way, is currently third in the national point standings. Some of the sponsors include DAP Motorsports and ML Chasers, which is a rock and roll club in Clearwater, Florida. Imagine That, always very reliable. You can always count on Imagine That to finish the race. Currently in third place here in B class and third in the national point standings. Right now in B class, you've got CF Express in the lead, followed by Power Play and, of course, Imagine That. Some of the other competitors include Pittman Photo Express and Rock Solid. Imagine That, currently in third place in B class. Scott Langbine from Brink, New Jersey, doing a fine job there at the throttle. Just listen to those Bandit inboards. There's the Imagine That crew looking comfortable in their racing bolsters, doing a fine job keeping a good attitude on this boat in these waters. Imagine That, looking and sounding excellent. As you can see there, it's a bumpy ride here in Marathon, Florida. In A class, there's A176 Fountain. Fountain is a 29-foot fountain powered by one 650 horsepower Dennis inboard with a Mercruiser outdrive. Aboard Fountain is the driver Patrick Patel from Brick, New Jersey. He's also throttling and navigating is Chris O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. You're looking at A176 Fountain in A class. Some of the other competitors in A class include Frank's Marine, which is currently in first place. Then there's Velocity, and of course Fountain right now running in third place in A class. Then there's Scott Free Racing, Just Lucky Racing, Independence, and No Problem. Those competitors in A class. You're looking at A176 currently running in third place in A class and heading for that 7-mile bridge. There's the Fountain A176 going under the old 7 Mile Bridge. Right now, Fountain is doing very well in the national point standings. It is in second place in the national point standings in A class, with a total of 293 points, right behind Frank's Marine, which is in first place at 364 points. Of course, there are the spectator boats in the background and the bridge. There's Fountain currently in third place in A class. Pat Patel and Chris O'Donnell at navigating, doing a fine job. This is the 5th national race for the APBA, and a very exciting race it is, with over 50 boats entered in this race. There once again you see Pat Patel throttling and driving, and Chris O'Donnell navigating aboard A176 Fountain, powered by one 650 horsepower Dennis inboard. In the middle of the pack in C class is Simply Red. Simply Red is a 32-foot skater powered by two 2.5 EFIs. The driver, Richard Ginsburg from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. At the throttle, Don Smith, also from Fort Lauderdale. This is Simply Red's first race. It's rigged and maintained by Foreplay Marine. Don Smith is the owner, and once again, this is the first race. It's a brand new boat. Simply Red in the middle of the pack in C class. It's unusual now for a 32-foot skater to run in C class. Usually we see them in P class. But once again, this is a brand new boat, first race. Simply Red doing a fine job in the middle of the pack in C class. Simply Red. Don Smith, who is the throttle mainer on Simply Red, also is the owner of Foreplay Marine, which has rigged and maintained Simply Red, as well as rigging and maintaining also other high-performance boats. Simply Red is doing rather well, considering they have two 2.5 EFIs, doing very well in the C class. Simply Red, and we welcome Simply Red to the 1993 racing season and wish them the very best of luck. Simply Red C707 in the middle of the pack in C class. Richard Ginsburg and Don Smith doing a fine job. There are those 2.5 EFIs and the crew members aboard Simply Red. These 2.5 EFIs sound excellent. In first place in B class is CF Express. CF Express is a 28-foot Scarab powered by two 600 horsepower Chevy inboards with Merc Cruiser drives. Aboard CF Express, driver Steve Simon from Capistrano, California. At the throttle, Mark Franz, also from Capistrano. You're looking at CF Express, currently #1 in B class in this 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. CF Express has done extremely well in this 1993 season. They've taken first place in Texas and in Sarasota. And also, they took first place in Long Beach and second place in San Diego. If they win this race today, they will have won 3 straight national races for 1993. You're looking at CF Express currently in first place in B class. There we go. There's CF Express going under the 7-mile bridge. CF Express also had a terrific 1992 season. They took first place in Ventura, second in Marina del Rey, first in Long Beach, first in San Francisco, and first in Lake Mead. They were the 1992 APBA Western Divisional Champions and also the 1992 U.S. Offshore World Champions. You're looking at CF Express currently in first place in B class. The CF Express racing team would like to thank their sponsors, who include Teague Custom Marine, Cannery Restaurant, and Cellular Division. CF Express. Steve Simon and Mark Franz doing a fine job there aboard CF Express. Once again, they are in first place. If they win today, it will be their 3rd straight national race that they've won. You're looking at CF Express currently number 1 in B class. This will be the final boat that we will be covering for the 1993 Run for the Gold here in Marathon, Florida. In just a short while, we'll be compiling the final results of this Run for the Gold. With Running Wild getting a well-deserved checkered flag, and also there you see Spirit of Houston getting a checkered flag as well, it's time now for a rundown of the final results of this 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. First off in C class, as we said, Running Wild took first place with an average speed of 79 miles per hour. Then there's Ocean Outboard and Harazuba. In Super, In Excess came in first with an average speed of 76.34 miles per hour. Then there was Apache Kid. In the Open, Recovery took it with 93.01. In the Modified, Agitator in first place at 89.12 miles per hour, followed by Flying Tiger and Airborne. In the Pro Outboard, as we said, Spirit of Houston took the checkered flag at 80.98, followed by Slick 50 and Geodynamic Industries. In Offshore B, there was CF Express at 79 miles per hour, followed by Power Play and Imagine That. In the Stock Outboard, Mobile One took first place at 79.40 miles per hour, followed by Team Florida and Quality Machine Products. There's Kirk and Alan Duttman aboard Agitator and their well-deserved checkered flag. In Offshore A, Frank's Marine came in first with an average speed of 68.44 miles per hour, followed by Velocity and Fountain. That's in Offshore A. And those are the final results for this 1993 Run for the Gold in Marathon, Florida. Well, that's it. It was a great day of racing. Over 50 boats in the race and 8 national race classes competed today. Perhaps the closest and most exciting finish of the day was the battle between Agitator, the father and son team of Alan and Kirk Dumpman, and the Flying Tiger husband and wife race team of Sonny and Tina Hawkins. Agitator took their third 1993 class victory with an average speed of 89.12 miles per hour. The Agitator race team has been the winningest race team in the world in the 1990s. Today's victory was their 18th in the last 24 races. Californian Mark Franz and his CF Express Offshore B-Class team won their third win of the season with an impressive 73.34 miles per hour average, skipping 2 races on this year's national schedule to compete at home. The CF Express race team has won every national race it has entered. CF Express, a Wellcraft Scarab Deep V, and Agitator, a Douglas Skater Catamaran, have each won this year in Corpus Christi, Sarasota, and of course today. Pro Outboard Class Points leader Spirit of Houston, owned and driven by Bill Westbury of Houston and throttled by Fort Myers veteran throttleman Roger Rogers, seized their third checkered flag of this season also with an almost start-to-finish